Hello, everyone, and welcome to our esteemed panel discussion. Our topic for today is navigating the dynamic IT landscape with Atera's customers, boosting productivity with AI and automation. My name is Muna Assi, and I head the product marketing team here at Atera, and I'm very delighted to be joining esteemed panel with our customers to talk about IT. And as we embark on a journey through the ever-shifting terrain of the IT landscape, guided by the transformative power of AI and automation, today we gather to illuminate the path towards enhanced efficiency, enhanced productivity, and simplicity in the realm of IT operations. In this customer panel, I am very privileged to be joined by industry experts who navigate IT challenges day in and day out, drawing upon their firsthand experience and their expertise to illuminate the different possibilities that lie at the intersection of technology and human ingenuity. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our customer panel. Gentlemen, welcome. Graham, thank you for joining us today. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Muna. My name is Graham Peck. I'm the Data Security Manager and Data Protection Officer for Leeds United Football Club. As from the title, you can make out that I work for a football club currently in the UK EFL, and my role typically consists of IT and automation and security.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you.
We also have Joe Summers with us today on the customer panel. Welcome, Joe. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Joe Summers, and I work for Delap Cyber, and we're an MSP based out of Portland, Oregon. And I'm the cyber manager for our team. And so I'm leading and training our team, taking care of our clients, and innovating new and interesting solutions to any sort of problems that they might find themselves having.
Wonderful. And last but not least, I'm excited to welcome Sayed. Sayed, feel free to introduce yourself. Hello.
Hi, my name is Sayed Hasib. I'm the technology manager of Central Park Conservancy. I'm responsible for implementing IT services and solution to the staff, and also streamline IT daily work while maintaining and improving our IT policies and our cybersecurity posture.
Wonderful. And I think I'm going to start with you, Sayed, because I think this is an area that intrigued me very much. Because when usually we think of parks, we don't immediately think of them as a technology hub. Can you give us some insights into the various technologies that you manage?
Yeah, sure. So when you think of like Central Park, like it's not just a park, it's just like it's a very iconic and unique park itself. The reason I said that because, we have different group of people doing different things in the organization. We have a philanthropy team who are responsible for, for donor relation, bringing funds in to take care of the park. So they need data, from different sources. So, we're also responsible to make that available to them whenever they need it. Depends, if they're remote or on site, doesn't really matter. They need the data, to interact with the donor and to bring in funds. We also have planning, design, and construction team who help design and construct a different part of landscape in the Central Park. So their needs are completely different from the philanthropy team. They're more computing heavy. They need computing heavy machines. Graphic card, bigger monitors and stuff like that. So, it really depends. So we also have park maintenance people who take care of the park day in, day out, keep the park clean, keep the landscape managed as it is, mowing the lawn and stuff like that. And also we have communication teams, so which makes us, more active in social media, interact with with the public, to encourage public to come in more to the Central Park, So yeah, so it really depends. So their needs are completely different. Communication team needs more graphic heavy a computer as well. They need Macs. They're editing pictures, videos for the social media, and also to interact with the internal staff. They also design signage around the park, so the public knows what to do when they're in the certain area, how to take care of the park themselves, so to educate them. So yeah.
Wonderful. So this is big proof that technology is all around us. And
Yeah,
when we
yeah,
think
definitely.
IT, it's not just that daily maintenance of it's so much more. And
So
that
much more.
gets me to you, Graham.
Yeah.
Can you, being in the football industry, and I'm a big fan of Leeds United, can you share some insights into the current state of IT, specifically from the vertical that you're supporting? And what are some of the key trends and developments shaping the landscape?
Yes, so at the moment, I'd say football's quite transformative. There's been leaps and bounds from a technology perspective over recent years. So for things like data that we collect both for fan and player interactions. So, but also things like player enhancements. So we will monitor performance both on the pitch as well as off the pitch during training and the likes. We also use things like VR. We'll use for like fan engagement. We'll use various different technologies, but on the AI side, effectively now it's becoming where you're loading in all of the data streams that you're getting from a player. So when a person comes to a football match, they just see the players running around on the screen. What they don't realize is that in the background, we are capturing heart rates, oxygen levels. We're even capturing the environmentals, temperatures, how fast they run, how high they jump, how many times they've touched the ball and all that. And all that data we then bring back and we utilize to be able to make sure that typically we can get to a point where we know the player is tired before the player knows that they're tired. So the coach will know when to be able to change them or to bench them. But we'll also know when we need to change their positions and things like that.
Amazing. What stress on those players, I must say.
Yeah, well, what they do now is, unfortunately, players are becoming aware of the value of the data, and they can use that now to negotiate things like salaries, whereas before it was more around the club could say, well, this is what we think you're worth and so forth. We're now, because you're capturing so much data and the player now knows the value of that data, it's a lot easier for them to negotiate by saying, well, my performance was here, it's on the trajectory going up. Therefore, if I maintain this level of performance, I want to earn this amount. But if my trajectory should change, then this is what I'm wanting to earn. So that value of the data is increased, as well as for when you're wanting to sell or purchase players.
Amazing. That's really great insight for us as viewers from this side. To you, Joe, from your perspective in terms of the business, you are a managed service provider, so not an internal corporate IT department. Can you share with us some insights into the current state of IT from your perspective, working with various verticals, and maybe a little bit about, what you do for those customers on a day-to-day?
Definitely. The biggest thing that we try and do is provide enterprise solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. And so for us, some of the verticals we support are financial services companies, as well as automotive dealerships, which traditionally have been underserved from our understanding. And what you find is a lot of these places are dealing with a changing compliance landscape, where they're needing to keep up with more and more regulations. They're being treated as financial institutions. And so there's more requirements for that data to be kept secure, as well as for them to be on the alert of ever-present danger from threat actors. So it's really interesting to see as some of these verticals are changing within themselves, that's also adapting and changing the kind of IT solutions that we're providing for them. The other thing is tech debt. It seems like, we would all have new computers and new software and new things so that we would never run into this issue again. But, hindsight's 2020, and a lot of these places are finding themselves with a lot of tech debt. And it's difficult when you're having to convince people that, if you are purchasing new equipment on a certain interval, you're going to be getting better performance, and actually it's going to cost you less to maintain it as well. And so part of what we do is really an advisory service to them, as far as like trying to be their best advocates and spend their dollars wisely, so that we can make it a trusted client relationship that we're building with them, rather than we're just a service and we're going to charge you as much as possible. And so really for us, we do a lot of process automation for these clients, and finding ways that we can make their dollars go further and help their employees not feel like they're doing those mundane tasks that, at the end of the day, they don't need to spend 12 hours in Excel if they can do it in a half hour with an automation flow. And so what we really try and do is just be our customers' best advocates and provide them empowerment to get the most for what they're spending on their technology. And when trouble comes their way, which sadly, that happens often, we're there for them. And then we're trying to provide the most value possible to them. And so, anything from networking to printers to just how do I make this app work to, this patch broke something, like all these things, that's where Atera steps in for us to be able to assist them quickly with a lot of remote management. But it's all about that client relationship that we're building with them. And so our goal is to make sure that we are continuing on our course to be a premier service provider for the Northwest. And so with these verticals and other companies that we're working with, we've been really excited to see even these small changes to us in IT make a huge difference to our clients.
Thank you for that. And we will touch a little later on how Atera plays a role in your day-to-day IT for each one of you. Graham, so we said, you're an internal IT department, but basically you too have clients, just clients of a different type. Yeah. Given the dynamic nature of technology and the ever-increasing demand for IT services, right? You'll tell us a little bit about your team, but I guess IT, that's never a big enough team. How do you prioritize tasks and allocate IT resources internally to maximize productivity?
Yes, so what we do is we have a small team. So because of that, one of the things that we've got to be acutely aware of is balancing the workload across those team members, because it is such a small team. So to prevent things like burnouts and so forth, and to also ensure the optimum productivity of the users. But the other things that we do is we look at almost like a risk assessment to say, from our perspective, things like security vulnerabilities, compliance requirements, or system stability is primary for us, especially if we've got something like a match coming up, because from a football club's perspective, you only have limited time to make as much revenue as possible for the year. So every home match is a requirement where that is the time where you make your money, and there's not really any other time other than some sponsorships and so forth. So to try and maximize on that, you got to look at things like your cost benefits analysis, like I mentioned before, your resource availability, assessing the urgency from and the impact from the business side, because what we try and do is then categorize it into things like, is it urgent and important, or is it important but it's not really urgent, to try and make it so that your client base, which for me and my team is anybody that sits outside of the IT department, whether you're somebody that works on the contact center as a tickets office person to one of the sports therapists at the training ground, each one has their own specific requirements, and it's trying to identify, does it have a business impact? What for their request? Is there a business impact to it? So that we can then look at it, but also we've got to take into account strategy versus technical. So in other words, a strategic project may require more planning and investments, which can significantly impact the organizational's future. But then from a long-term goal, the tactical side is your day-to-day operations. So can we do things like create tickets for routine maintenance and make that a lot easier, so I don't have to remember my tasks. My team doesn't have to remember to do things, I can automate it within a system to say, you need to do this, you need to do that, or even automate the task itself, which then means my clients at the end of the day are helped out a lot more because they don't have to interact with IT. There's a lot of things they can get the information themselves on.
Thank you. And with that, Sayed, if we're talking about, again, internal team members or employees that you need to service, can you give us insight on what does a day in the life of IT look like for your department? What are the challenges that you are looking to address?
Yeah, sure. So, when I say small organization, like we're still a 400 group of people, like, so it really depends. One day we could be doing basic troubleshooting, and the other day we could be addressing issue, department-wise, trying to solve a problem, specific problem for a department or organization-wide. It really depends. But the challenge is, since we're expanding for the past couple of years, that we have been new people coming in, and when new people come in, to fill up the position, they bring in their vision, they bring in their expertise, so they have specific vision, in mind. So how to do that, and there's IT component related to it. So so it's really not a challenge, but I would say that to work with them, how we can facilitate them properly, or provide a better solution for them. And for example, let's say, when I'm in the park, I'm taking a survey, a laptop, I need a laptop, for example, but we might come in, it's no, what about an iPad? Would that iPad work for you better? Because then you'll have the cellular range, you can be more mobile. And so it's working with the user is and they're managing their expectation, and while maintaining, while doing all of that, obviously our IT policies comes in place, our security posture comes in place, how do we accommodate that, fit everything together. So so yeah, it's a challenge, but so
And Sayed, based on your team and organization structure, you are national in terms of the employees, or in one single location?
No, we're a single location. We have one head office, but we have 13 locations inside the park. But we also have staff who are working remote sometimes. So yeah, so we're
So tell us a
supporting,
little bit about how Atera plays a role in your day-to-day operations.
Well, yeah, post-pandemic, the whole paradigm change, obviously, now we have more remote workers, more laptops outside. So, and it was becoming a challenge to help them and also patch those devices. Obviously, patching is a big thing in the cybersecurity nowadays. So patching was challenging. So when Atera comes in, it took care of the patching. We know the patching has been taken care of. We can interact with the user. We can help them user remotely. Which makes it pretty easy for us. So when something happens, we don't have to go out in the park so much, but but which we can resolve it within a couple of minutes. So but yeah,
especially with the excessive weather of New York. Apologies, I was going to say, especially with the extremes in New York, right? You don't want to be leaving the office to support.
Exactly. And, it's also the remote worker as well. Some workers, like I said, the philanthropy team sometimes work remote, different groups of people work remote. And, if something happens, they'll need support. And, there's only so much we can do, over the phone. But yeah, Atera gives us the opportunity, to fill that gap, basically.
Great. And to you, Joe, I'd love to hear about how your team leverages Atera and for what purposes. Can you give us some insight on that?
For us, a big thing is ticketing. So we have multiple customers. And so being able to quickly organize and sort and keep track of everything through the ticketing interface that has continually been updated to address more and more functionality has been solid. We migrated away from a different ticketing platform. We were already using Atera. And so for us, the decision to try and get to that single pane of glass was super important. The biggest thing too is that we also use device management and being able to use IT automation profiles so that we can make sure that not only things are patched, but we're also able to run scripts in the background that keep proprietary software running efficiently. Things like VPNs for different industry software that they're having to make sure always maintain connection. There's been some incredible things we've been able to do with the Atera automation. The other piece is network discovery is a super handy tool for us to be able to check and see, is that printer actually online or is it not? And if it can save you an on-site visit for somewhere 5 hours away, that's a super helpful and cost-effective solution for not only our team but also the clients, and so that we're not having to pass that cost on to them. And finally, the knowledge capture piece is very important for our team. And so we're continually building out our knowledge base and providing solutions so that, let's say, if I'm a tier 3 tech, that if I'm discovering a solution of something, I can document it and pass it down to our tier 2 and our tier 1 team so that in the future, they're able to take care of that issue for our client. And that way, they're not paying, a higher rate for something that can be taken care of in 5 minutes because we were able to identify quickly and easily what is the solution to these things. And so that knowledge capture, being able to make sure things are actually connected, device management and automation, it really is, becoming that single pane of glass for us to be able to take care of our clients effectively and make sure that we are continuing that client relationship and building trust by not having to spend so much time and effort and money taking care of them, for sure.
And speaking
there's
of those
something
clients,
I want to add. Sorry.
Go ahead, say it.
Yeah. There's something I want to add is the reporting tool was great. As a technology manager, my job is to, look at the reports, which software is missing. And Atera comes in very handy for that. I can look at it, it's like, oh, which machines are not running antivirus, our endpoint management solution, So, looking at the report, I can see which machines are missing, quickly deploy it, so it came in pretty handy. Yep.
Yes, reporting is a critical part of keeping, again, you cannot improve what you don't measure. It starts with that, and obviously keeping an eye on what needs to be improved. So thank you for that. Joe, I did want to ask you in continuation, seeing as you do work with a diverse verticals and a wide range of clients, I assume that continuous upskilling and staying updated on the latest technologies is essential for your IT team to be able to deliver, the right solutions. How do you, as a cyber manager, ensure that your team remains competitive and adept at handling these emerging technologies and trends? And if you have any recommendations for specific resources or trainings that you do or that you provide for your team?
Definitely. I think for our team, we want to make sure that we're always lifelong learners. I think that when you stop trying to learn new things, it gets really hard to be able to adapt and be engaged in what's going on, not only for yourself, but also for your clients. And so part of the fun and something that we've come up with is the idea of world first clears, because sometimes you can't Google an answer and find, a specific solution to the problem someone's facing. And so when we discover that first time world clear, answer to a solution, that's thrilling, that's exciting. And so we try and celebrate those wins. And that's also where documentation comes super, important, because if we don't know, if we don't record it, what's to say we might not remember the next time? And again, getting those quicker solutions is really handy for our clients. I would also say that we all have specialties. While I would say that in our team, there's a lot of general knowledge and information and skills that we build. It's also like, oh, if you're super interested in security, why don't you start studying some of that, and can you bring some of that back to the full team so that we can be learning from you? Or if you're interested in Azure or process automation, like start learning some of that. And so I think for us, a big thing is making sure that we're staying adaptable, so that no matter what happens, as the landscape continues to change in the verticals we support, we're making sure that we have enough knowledge to be able to know when we can be a trusted advisor, when we can make those hard decisions, and encouraging our clients to make sure that they're making the right decisions when it comes to their technology. Now, another key piece for us is we also have a pay to pass plan, where if one of our team members is taking a cert test and they're trying to get upskilled on something, we're a huge Microsoft shop, so we do a lot of the Microsoft certs, but our company will pay for them to pass the cert, and so it's an incentive for them to study hard, make sure that they're giving their best effort, and then we'll reward them for doing that. However, if you don't pass the first time, you have to pay to take care of that. So we want to make sure that there's some skin in the game, so to speak. But that's been a really big encouragement. And, right now where our team is at, there's going to be pockets of time, whether it's during work hours or outside of work hours, where you can spend time studying, learning, and growing, and bringing that back to what you're doing. Because every day, there's new threats, new challenges, new software exploits, all sorts of things where it's like you might just pick up that one piece of information that can lead to saving a multi-hour ticket, in the future. And so we really just encourage our team to make sure that they are taking the time that they need to stay aware, to be curious, and be engaged in what's going on. So for us, there's been a few resources that have been helpful. We've got a subscription to CBT Nuggets. They provide a lot of different training courses for a variety of different vendors. Udemy has some also good classes. And Wiz Labs has been a great resource for me when it's time you've done the research, you've put in the effort, it's time to take a bunch of practice tests and make sure you get that 80% or whatever's required, and away you go. And so for us, it's been finding those cost-effective solutions and making sure that we're scratching those itches of learning and engagement and being adaptable to what's coming up next.
Thank you, Joe. That's covered quite a lot, but I do want to ask Graham a similar question. Graham, I know in our discussion, you and I before, as an IT leader, you've been in the industry over 20 years, and you probably also, in different types of companies in IT. I want to ask you a similar question. Continuous upskilling, how important is that? And what do you do in terms of your team? How do you ensure that they are well equipped to stay ahead of these emerging technologies?
Yeah, thanks, Nina. It's very much similar to Joe with regards to people in IT. You've got to have that aptitude of being a lifelong learner. It's not like somewhere you study in the beginning and then you can forget about it after that. It's looking at all the different areas and finding out also within your team, what are their interests? Having a look and saying, well, okay, like Joe said about somebody wanted to go and look at security or whatever. On our side, because we've got a small team, it's trying to keep them active, trying to keep them busy, trying to keep them engaged, because it can be quite monotonous, especially when you're working in a first line or second line role. What people sometimes don't understand from an engineer's perspective, that the client doesn't know that somebody else may have already come and asked you the same question 3 or 4 or 5 times before. So by using, like what we do in Atera, by using on the service desk side of things, we're able to then say, well, if the person goes into their service pool, they can go and have a look at the how-to documents or whatever that's already been created to make it a lot easier to filter out a lot of those repeat questions that come in. One of the other things we do as a team is make sure we ask, well, what is the top 10 for this month? What are the top 10 queries that have come in? And how can we automate it or resolve it so that you can then break those down and make it so that you then, the following month, you don't have as many of those, which then makes it a lot easier. And again, using Atera's tool sets, whether it's in the documentation or the automation side of it, is quite handy. From a training perspective, we do similar. We use Udemy, we use CBT Nuggets. We also speak a lot to our vendors. So if we will utilize, and most vendors will supply training as part of, so then what we'll do is we'll do refresher training, because technologies will change, software gets updated and so forth. And then you just have, well, what we do is we ask people to become like knowledge owners. So somebody within the team may take ownership of a specific technology, and then they become the go-to person for transferring that skills off to the rest of the team.
Great. And you touched on Atera,
Yeah.
so I want to expand on that.
That's-
You've been using Atera almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what role it plays in your day-to-day IT operations, and give us some, probably, for those new people out there, what are some of the best practices for leveraging Atera really to streamline workflows and create those efficiencies and productivity?
Yeah, so over the career, I've used lots and lots of different IT management tools. I think is a better way of describing Atera rather than a ticketing solution and something, because it does so much more than just tickets. And for us, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We use it a lot for our service area and being able to support our clients, but then also being able to optimize the business from an IT perspective. So we use a lot of scripting and scheduling of those scripts within the Atera product, because then it means I don't have to remember in my Outlook calendar or whatever the case to say, oh, at this stage I need to do this task, or I need to go and flush caches on these machines or whatever. I can use the tool sets from within either scripts that I've designed myself or of the ones out of the script database, because why reinvent the wheel if there's already somebody that's created the script in the first place? And that's another thing which Atera is really good at. You don't have to reinvent the wheel a lot of the time. A lot of the information that's in there is from knowledge base across different companies and technologies. The other thing that I like about it is it helps me to identify bottlenecks within my environment. But also it allows me to utilize some of the tool sets. So reporting, like Syed mentioned earlier, I was able to use the reporting to be able to then go to management and say, because of the current ticket utilization and the amount of time that engineers are spending and that doing specific tasks, I can justify bringing in another IT consultant or another IT person because we have the capacity, and we're at risk of burning out the existing team because of the fact I could see from an SLA perspective how many tickets they had or how long they were spending resolving issues, what their productivity looked like. Whereas before on a lot of the other systems, it wasn't that granular. It was very much well, you're a solution to manage it, to raise a ticket and resolve it. And my SLA is more around how long did it take for somebody to pick up the ticket and how long did it take to resolve the ticket? Not so much on how happy was my customer at the end of the day on my ability to resolve the ticket to their satisfaction, which then also gave me those feedback that I could go back to the department when we were doing department heads and saying, well, this is what the overall department looks like from a behavioral perspective, or what people thought was the attitude, so I could use it for constructive feedback.
Wonderful. And again, Ateraverse, the past day and today is all focused on AI. And really, Atera is pioneering the age of AI in IT. So I'd love to hear from each of you, and we can start from you, Syed. Looking at AI in general and then AI specific within Atera, how do you envision AI shaping the future of IT operations? And are there any AI-driven initiatives that your company is now leading?
Yeah, sure. So AI itself, obviously, it's a whole new world. Like some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, but I think if we leverage AI properly, I think as an IT professional, we can make a bigger impact in our organization. Leveraging IT, thinking of, AI can do most of the automation, and while the IT professional have the right vision, we can make a bigger impact in our organization. As far as Atera goes, I want to share, this is a very funny story. I figured out a couple of days ago, we didn't introduce Atera AI to our staff yet, but we enabled it. But so one of the user had trouble opening up a zip file. Atera showed up and it's like, oh, you're trying to open up the zip file. You're missing a piece. Do you want me to install it? And it actually did install it, but during the conversation, it's so funny that like the user didn't even realize she's not talking to a real person. It's an AI. It's almost towards the end. It's like, oh, who am I talking to? And Atera says like, oh, it's an AI assistant. I'm here to help. And they were like, oh, and who's that supposed to be? And I was like, I was reading it. I was like cracking up. I was like, oh man. So it's a funny thing like this, like, and I can envision that, like once we introduce, educate, and communicate to the user how to use AI, AI in the Terra, AI in general, doesn't matter. But like I think we can, they can negate most of this simple question like this. It's like we had a ticket, how do I change my Zoom background? Atera AI can, like resolve it very quickly with just a couple of, like just asking it. I know we can Google it, but like Google will give you so many options, but Atera, the answer is right there. So I think, like if we communicate them, we can educate them, and they know how to use it. I mean, it can change the whole IT world. Yeah, and so yeah, that's and Atera, like. AI, the way they're using it is pretty cool. Like Graham said, like like we sometimes we do a script, and like now like we can just type it like what we want to do, and it just does the script for us. So I mean, it's great. It's amazing. Like the way how AI can build up the script. Like it's pretty handy for us time to time. Like we don't have to like Google it or like come up with our own script. It's right there. So yeah, both for staff and for IT professionals, I think it's pretty good.
Thank you for sharing that. And Joe, I want to ask you a similar question. Are there any AI-driven initiatives that your company is exploring? And if you are touching AI within Atera, we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I would say that for us, we've definitely been exploring, the offerings from OpenAI and Microsoft, like Copilot. It's funny because AI is kind of this Pandora's box that people think, especially stakeholders, oh, if we just, toss that over there, it's going to do something for us, and I think we've all seen the news, and there's some challenges going on figuring out what is the right implementation for AI in various services and industries. I think for me, I think a lot about like there's still always going to need to be someone, a person between the machine and our clients. And so, while some of the joke is we can automate ourselves out of a job, I think at the same time, I think AI is here to empower us, and I think that's what we've really focused on right now is figuring out what are the ways that we can empower those unique human qualities that we're providing as services to our teams and our clients. And so for us, we've really focused in Atera on in the ticketing aspect. I love the auto ticket tagging, that I don't have to go in and manually add ticket tags to things. I love the fact that I can go in and see a summary of all of the conversations on one of those tickets. We all get those tickets with 85 replies, and you're just, why did this have to be this hard? And I think for me, being able to have a quick summary and be like, okay, so, when I go to meet with my team and be like, what could we do differently this time? I can actually do that and not have to spend, 85 minutes trying to read what's going on in this crazy conversation. And so for me, that saves a lot of time, helps me be efficient, and then also gets to the point of here's some usable data that I can stack up and make sure that I'm sharing with my team of like, hey, so I think, I see what you did here. I understand, but what if we did this? And it's like, okay, I think it really is a helpful tool that we can use. The other piece to that too is that you can also now take resolutions from tickets and turn those into articles automatically. And, I was testing this out recently and been turning tickets that are, have, again, some of those twists and turns that you sometimes experience, and being able to quickly turn that into a ticket, tag it, and away you go. I mean, that's going to be so helpful for training my tier 1 and tier 2 team to make sure that they're able to handle some of those, crazy situations that always somehow come up and when you least expect it. The other piece too is, again, kind of highlighting process automation and scripting. It's what's really nice is that you don't have to be an expert to be able to start making these processes and to start coding things that are going to make a difference like day one. And part of it too is like we do have a small team, and so if we can all have these different tools in our tool belt that continue to help us be efficient, leverage our resources, and serve our clients better, I see Atera providing to us in a huge way so that we can each become better technicians and keep upskilling, kind of like what we talked about earlier. And so I see that empowerment from AI and Atera for sure.
And I think, Graham, I want to, as almost a final question, ask you something similar. If you've got any specific implementations of AI or examples that you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, more and more in football now, you're using AI for a number of things, but it's now also going into things like social media moderating and the likes of those, because you can imagine as a football club, your fans are sometimes really happy with you and sometimes really not. And because of the existing trend on, what's the best way to describe them, keyboard warriors within social media, that you then have a duty of care to your players and other people within the teams. You've then got to look at things like social media monitoring and the likes. But from an Atera perspective, on the AI side, I look at it in the form of the current AI within Atera. It's almost like it gives me another engineer, like another resource. It means I'm able to resolve my tickets quicker because I have a system in place that's able to take a lot of that load off, which before was quite a manual process. The users are getting used to interfacing with the AI side of Atera to help them resolve it. So therefore, it actually takes quicker to resolve the ticket than what it was when it was an engineer sitting behind doing the to and fro and backwards and forwards, where now that automation makes it so much easier. And the thing that they haven't lost, as if they were talking to a person, they can still talk in people talk and not realize that the other end of it, it's actually an AI engine. It's not a bot that will give you block answers the same time every time. It's intuitive and so forth, which makes it like really handy. But also things like scripting and so forth. So you don't, rather than spend loads of ages and have your engineers trying to Google or look at various different scripts for things, tell it what you're wanting it to do. And it typically comes out with your script. You test it in your test environment before deploying it. And the time to live and that process is drastically reduced compared to traditional methods and a lot of other competitors' systems which don't have that functionality.
Gentlemen, I'm really enjoying our conversation, and I have so many more questions that I want to ask you, but unfortunately we're almost out of time and we need to move on to our next session. So I would like to ask you if you have any final words, Sayed, any advice that you want to give to other IT directors out there who are considering implementing Atera or similar platforms. Any final words from you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we implemented Atera in January, but since then since Atera is doing all the patching, the AI is doing all the scripting, I have so much time for now. And now that, I can interact with the user, address their needs, so I have more time now to address the actual solution, like I said, leveraging it is, AI, and how we leverage it is really on us, and I think with that, I think we can make a bigger impact in our organization. Rather than playing a catch up, now we can be ahead of our game and address the real problem that the organization or anybody is facing.
Thank you for that. Joe, any final words from your end?
Yeah, I think as people continue to leverage Atera, make sure that you're using the customer support. I've had a great number of times where I've been asking about like, hey, this is happening, anything I can do about that? And then, getting quick responses and then hearing back from real humans and making sure that like things are actually progressing. And I love being involved in hearing about what's coming up next. And so for me, it's kind of like I'm on this journey with Atera. We've been with you guys for like 4+ years at this point, and we're excited to see where it's going and unlocking those new possibilities. And so use your resources.
Yeah, and Joe, I have to give a shout out to the Atera support team. They have been great since I implemented it. Ask a question within a minute, I get an answer. It's so easy. I cannot tell you. It makes my life easy so much easier. Huge shout out to the support team.
Thank you. They will definitely appreciate it.
Yes.
Graham, any final words from you?
Yeah, I mean, for IT managers, I mean, anybody that says that cost is not an issue lies, because there's always a budget somewhere. And the advantage that I found with Atera is the cost model is really good in the form of you're licensing by engineer, not by users or devices, which kind of is my bugbear, because when you do a network discovery, you will get everything that, including that's hiding underneath the stairs. So that's one thing I like really well with regards to Atera's the cost model, but also it's got built-in security and compliance into it, which a lot of the others don't have. So it'll do things like vulnerabilities and that. So if they're looking for an all-in-one package, and the advantage is you can do a free trial. It is so easy, and that's how we did it.
Yep.
We did a free trial. Best thing is putting it in, having a look, see if it works for you, look at the cost model, look at the benefits, and then just click that button, make that choice. It's really easy.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And we're very happy to have you as our customers. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for this insightful discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.